kitchen reeked of fried onions and cigarette smoke, the same air I'd grown up choking on. My father sat at the head of the table, his beer balanced on his belly, while my mother leaned against the counter, smirking like she already knew what was coming. My brother Sean sprawled across the couch with his phone, chuckling at some video, while I clutched the crumpled papers in my hand, acceptance letters, financial aid notices, tuition breakdowns. "Dad," I started, my voice cracking before I could study it. "The deadline for my college payment is next week. I need to put down at least part of the tuition. I was hoping you could help with it, even half. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." The room went silent for a beat, then Sean snorted without looking up. "Why don't you just quit whining and get a job at a diner? People like you don't belong in college anyway." I ignored him, my eyes fixed on my dad. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing, like my request was an insult carved into his skin. "You think we're made of money? You think after feeding you, putting a roof over your head, I'm gonna waste cash on some piece of paper that says you're smart?" I swallowed hard. "It's not a waste, it's my future. If I don't go now, That's when it happened. He stood up, walked toward me slow, almost calm. Then with no warning, his elbow drove into the side of my neck so hard, I gasped and crumpled against the counter. White spots burst in my vision, my papers scattered across the floor like worthless confetti. "Brains are wasted on trash," he growled, standing over me while I clutched at my throat, gasping for breath. Mom laughed, a sharp high sound that cut deeper than the blow. "Look at her now," she said to Sean, her voice dripping with amusement. "She finally matches what she is, a zero, exactly what I told you she'd be." Sean grinned, tossing a chip into his mouth. "Guess college solved itself." I couldn't even answer. My throat burned, tears blurred my vision, and all I could do was crawl on the floor to gather the crumpled papers while their laughter filled the kitchen. Each step I took on my knees made their voices sharper, louder, more humiliating. "Pick it all up, girl," Dad barked, kicking one of the letters across the room. "That's all you'll ever be good for, picking up scraps." I gathered the letters, my hands trembling, my chest tightening with rage I couldn't release. They thought I would stay down. They thought this was the end of my begging. But as I clutched those torn papers to my chest, one thought solidified inside me. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every bruise on my neck pulsed like a reminder of their words, their laughter. My reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror showed a swollen mark where his elbow had slammed me, and instead of shame, a dark, steady fire lit behind my eyes. They wanted me broken, but I was going to rise. Not by pleading, not by begging, but by showing them the cost of underestimating me. And I swore, as the house creaked under their drunken snores, that they would regret every word, every laugh, every bruise they'd ever laid on me. The next morning, my neck still throbbed where his elbow had struck. I pulled my hoodie high, hiding the bruise, and went to school like nothing had happened. Nobody asked why my voice was hoarse, why I avoided turning my head too quickly. Nobody ever did. I had gotten too good at pretending. But inside, something had shifted. I wasn't begging anymore. I was watching, listening, collecting. That evening, I came home to find Sean in the living room, bragging to Mom about how Dad had already promised him $10,000 for a new car after the wedding. "Imagine me rolling up in a Mustang, Ma." He grinned. "Everyone's gonna know who the favorite is." Mom beamed. "You deserve it, honey. Unlike some people in this house." Her eyes flicked toward me as I slipped through the door, pretending not to hear. Dad stumbled in later, reeking of beer, waving a slip of paper. "Guess what, Sean boy? Put down the deposit today. You'll be driving that car before the summer's out." He slapped the receipt on the table. I froze in the hallway, staring at the paper. $10,000 for Sean's toy car. But no money for my college? My blood boiled, so hot my fingers shook. "Thanks, Dad." Sean laughed, giving him a slap on the back. "At least you're not wasting it on trash." The word echoed through me again, like a bruise inside my skull. Trash. That night, I went into the kitchen when the house was finally quiet. I pulled the crumpled college letters from under my pillow, laying them on the counter. The paper was torn, wrinkled, but the words were still there. Acceptance, tuition, deadlines. I traced my finger over them, thinking of every hour I'd spent studying while they dismissed me as nothing. I whispered out loud to the empty room, "If I can't have their support, I'll take something else." Something they can't laugh off. The plan started small. I began paying attention to Dad's drunken ramblings, the things he bragged about when he thought no one was listening, like how he always skimmed a little extra cash off his construction jobs by forgetting to report certain expenses, or how Mom sold Sean's old clothes online for cash she never declared. They called it smart, but I saw it for what it was. Dirty. I wrote everything down in a notebook, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in my room. Times, dates, names of people he mentioned. Each page I filled made me feel less like the helpless daughter they mocked, and more like someone dangerous, someone they should fear. Meanwhile, they grew bolder. Mom mocked my bruised neck when she thought I couldn't hear. Should have smashed her whole head in. She chuckled one night while washing dishes. Dad grunted his approval. Sean laughed so hard he spilled soda on the rug. I didn't cry this time. I just listened, memorized, and stored every word like ammo. The turning point came 2 weeks later. My college sent the final notice. Pay by Friday or lose your spot. I sat at the kitchen table with the letter in my hands, heart racing, when Dad walked in. "What's that?" he barked. "My tuition," I answered, forcing my voice not to shake. "It's due in 3 days. If I don't pay it, I lose everything." He smirked, grabbed the letter, and ripped it clean in half. The sound was louder than any scream I could have let out. He let the pieces flutter to the floor and leaned close, his breath hot with whiskey. "You'll never be more than you are right now," he sneered. "Zero." Mom clapped her hands together like it was a show. "Bravo. Finally she gets the message." Sean whistled, pulling out his car keys. "Hey sis, if you're not busy crying, want to come see what a real investment looks like?" He dangled them in my face. The laughter roared around me again, but I didn't break this time. I looked each of them in the eyes one by one, and for the first time, I smiled. It startled them, just for a second, but it was enough, because in that moment I knew something they didn't. I had all I needed to crush them. Not with fists, not with begging, but with their own secrets. And when I walked back to my room that night, my neck still aching, my hands clenched around that hidden notebook, I whispered to myself, "They made me zero. Now I'll make them nothing." Friday came fast. The day my tuition was due. The day they thought they'd buried my future. Dad was gone early, bragging about a new side job. Mom sat in the living room painting her nails, humming off key. Sean pulled up in his shiny Mustang, blasting music, revving the engine loud enough to rattle the windows. "Don't stare too long," he smirked at me from the doorway. "Trash doesn't deserve dreams or cars." Mom laughed so hard she nearly spilled her polish. "She doesn't deserve anything but what she gets, and she'll keep getting it as long as she breathes in my house." Their voices dug deep, but my hands didn't shake this time, because I was ready. That night, after they all went to bed, I pulled the notebook from under the floorboard. The pages were filled now. Every shady deal, every cruel laugh, every careless admission they'd ever made when they thought I was invisible. I slipped it into my backpack, along with a flash drive I'd been building for weeks. The drive held recordings. Dad's drunken slurs about stealing on the job. Mom's casual boasts about reselling without taxes. Sean bragging about faking injuries for insurance cash. It was their entire empire of lies stacked against them. I didn't go to college that week. I went to their world. On Monday morning, while Dad was busy at a site, I walked in with the drive to his boss, a man with thick glasses and a stern face. "You don't know me," I said, voice steady, "but I know what he's been doing with your money." I laid down the proof, ledgers, dates, and audio clips. The man's expression hardened with every page. By Tuesday, Dad was screaming at home. He'd been fired, blacklisted from half the city. "Someone's trying to ruin me," he bellowed, veins bulging, spit flying. Mom tried to calm him, but the panic in her eyes betrayed her. Wednesday, I handed the IRS my mother's little online empire. Every dollar sheet hidden, every fake account, every scheme she thought too small to matter. When the letter came in the mail, back taxes, penalties, seizure threats, she collapsed into a chair, white as the paper she clutched. Thursday, it was Sean's turn. I sent his insurance fraud recording straight to the company he'd bragged about milking. By evening, his precious Mustang was towed away, repossessed to pay the debt he'd faked. He chased the tow truck down the street barefoot, screaming while neighbors peeked through curtains. And I stood at the window, arms crossed, watching them crumble. But that wasn't enough. They'd called me zero, trash, nothing. If I stopped here, I'd only proven them wrong quietly. I wanted them to choke on it. So Friday night, 1 week since Dad smashed his elbow into my neck. I made dinner, real dinner, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy. The smell filled the house, pulling them into the kitchen, suspicious but hungry. They sat confused, plates in front of them. "What's this?" Dad asked, narrowing his eyes. "Dinner," I said calmly. "A celebration?" Mom sneered. "Since when do you?" "Since tonight I cut her off. Since I decided to feed you one last meal before you starve." They froze. Sean laughed nervously. "What's that supposed to mean?" I pulled 3 envelopes from my pocket, laying them in front of them like cards in a game. Dad opened his first. Termination notice, blacklisting details, reports of fraud. His face drained. Mom tore her hair open. IRS penalties, audits, threat of asset seizure. Her hands shook. Sean ripped his apart. Insurance fraud charges, repossession notice, canceled policy. His dots dropped. The room went dead silent. "You called me zero," I said, voice steady. "You broke me, mocked me, crushed me. But zeros, they multiply. And I just multiplied your sins until you were nothing." Dad shoved the papers away, face red. "You think you can destroy this family?" I leaned in close, locking eyes with him. "You already did. I'm just making sure the world sees it." Mom's Polish-stained fingers trembled as she reached for my arm. "Please, you wouldn't." I pulled back, smiling cold. "I already did." I stood, left them at the table with their plates untouched, their lives unraveling before their eyes. Behind me, Mom began to sob. Dad cursed until his voice broke. Sean muttered, "This can't be happening," like a child repeating a prayer. But I didn't turn back. I walked out the front door into the night air. The stars above, brighter than they'd ever been. For the first time, my chest didn't feel hollow. My neck still ached where his elbow had struck, but it no longer felt like a wound. It felt like a scar I had branded back onto them, because they had smashed my dreams, called me zero, treated me like trash. But in the end, I left them choking on the only truth that mattered. They had nothing left, and I had everything they thought I'd never earn: my freedom. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.